Good evening, everyone. It's Tom Sidney Bushnell, aka Numbers, here from Psych.Club and from the Tom Numbers Show. And I'm here with a very special guest, someone that I've learned about recently, which I'm sure probably many of you will have done, and maybe this is your very first time, but it's Mr. ISMAEL PEREZ. ISMAEL, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, buddy. How are you? I'm
well, thank you so much. How are you?
Yeah, very good, and interested to delve into a number of things. So people that are new to the show, a lot of people won't be, but a lot of people will be. So I'll pepper in a few numbers, and that's why they call me Tom Numbers. But simply, it's A is the first letter of the alphabet, equals 1. B is 2, second letter of the alphabet, 3 is C, etc., all the way through to Z or Z26. And I've worked out some special numbers for you, ISMAEL. And we're going to delve into a number of subjects. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So to start off, I've got ISMAEL PEREZ, which comes to 129, which comes to priesthood. And I know you talk about priesthoods, etc. And also it comes to Judgment Day. And it seems from what I've seen on your videos and your posts that you're a big fan of the movies like Terminator and Avengers and Star Wars and Matrix and everything else. But Judgment Day is in Terminator 2, which is August 29th. And there's a few codes with that as well. But anyway, I wanted to welcome you to the show. And I wanted to say ISMAEL PEREZ is 129. Actually, I've got a question. So,
sure.
So one thing I noticed was the word restoration in your kind of title of your Instagram page. So I've got this right. It's Project Restoration Zion 1. I think I've got that right. And one of the things that stood out to me was restoration. Restoration comes to 154, comes to Second Coming, comes to Golden Jubilee, comes to the Revelation, comes to our friend Tara by Janine, who connected us up. So thank you, Janine. Also comes to someone from Mormon history, because people know that I was brought up Mormon, Hiram Smith, who was Joseph Smith's brother. So there's some interesting parallels there. So I was okay, interesting. But I've got a question. So Zion, and what's the +1 part? Is there any specific reason for that? That caught my attention.
Well, yeah, the word Zion means the free world. That was the original biblical term that was used by the covenant that was laid down with Abraham and Melchizedek that goes back to thousands and thousands of years ago. And through that covenant, which was the opposition of the Babylonian covenant, the Luciferian Babylonian covenant that was actually imposed by the Dark Brotherhood and the people who took power. So that was a secret covenant that was established long ago through Abraham and his descendants, the original ancient Israelites, not the fake Zionist Khazarians of today that are, run by the Rothschilds and gang. But I'm talking about the real, Israelites. Yes. And so that term has always meant the free world. In Abrahamic tradition, they call it the land of honey, the land of plenty. And in essence, when you study the history of secret societies, especially those that are associated with the benevolent secret societies of the Brotherhood of Melchizedek or the Order of Light, it has a lot to do with America, with the establishment of the Republic, keepers of of freedom and stuff. So that's what the word Zion means. It means to contend with the free world in opposition to the opposition system, which is that of a draconian oligarch empire, of course. But also in the movie The Matrix, it was actually used, and I loved it how they.
It was.
Yeah, the writers of The Matrix are very were insiders. They understood things beyond the metaphors. So they adapted a lot of those words with a lot of meaning. And so what they use is they adapted the word Zion, indicating that those that broke away from the Matrix are, living in Zion in a free world type system where they get to make their own choices, right? Yeah. And reality is so much different. So that was the term that they used in The Matrix. And so I love the word Zion. Now, the number 1. It turns out that 2 years ago, when I first got my Instagram, about 6 months into me having the Instagram, or 9 months, I'm sorry, I was hacked and I couldn't retrieve it. So what I did is I just started up a new Instagram and I just added the 1. There's no, other than that, there's no like spiritual significance or metaphor or anything like that.
I got it. And it's interesting why you talk about Zion. So from Mormon culture, Mormon is 88, Trump is 88, Scotland's 88, Purple's 88, and we've got the Lions Gate, August 8th, etc. So 88. but they talk about Zion being like the pure in heart. So again, a kind of another similar parallel. Also, you mentioned about the beehive. So one of the things with Mormon culture, back in the kind of pure days, if I'll leave it at that, they had the honeybee, they had the Deseret bee, kind of industry and nature and working, etc. So that was always there. But there was another thing that popped into my head as well, but it's popped out again. That was it. Yeah, he was talking about the organization of the Republic on the American continent. So in the Articles of Faith, there's 13 Articles of Faith that Joseph Smith wrote. And one of them, I'm paraphrasing it, but it talks about the establishment of Zion, the New Jerusalem on the American continent. And this awakening period of the last 2 years, I've realized that the New Jerusalem is also, a big starship, and I've heard you mention and reference to that. But any thoughts on that? Do you think there would be any kind of marrying of the starship? Would it physically land at any point on the American continent, help kind of build this New Jerusalem like a kind of millennial city? Any truth in that from your perspective?
Absolutely, there is. Some people call it the dove, the descending of the dove of the Great Jerusalem. So it's a huge mothership that is overseeing the entire restoration and liberation of the earth. And it's going to, once the cloak is lifted and people do transfer into the fifth dimensional reality, many humans are going to see all the different motherships that are working with the Galactic Federation. And a lot of these are going to be huge motherships, and the mothership that is going to be above all motherships is the New Jerusalem. And from what I understand, it does land on the chosen continent, which is America. There's something special about this land, about the United States of America, So yeah, it has a lot to do with that. And also, if you want to take this free world project and trace it back through history, before it reached, the original Masons and Rosicrucians who broke off from the old order of the Knights Templars. I mean, it goes back to the covenant that was left with Abraham. Actually, if you want to, go back to the history of the Republic, of Zion, of the free world. Because in essence, Tom, there's always been two forms of government. There's always been the oligarch, right? Fascism, totalitarianism, the empire, whatever you want to call it, right? And then the free world, where it's a government for the people and by the people, aka the Commonwealth. And so those two philosophies have always been associated throughout history with two camps of royal bloodline. So one camp of the royal bloodline that is associated with what I call in my book the Babylonian paradigm of the social political structure, which has been dominating for thousands of years, goes back to Nimrod. So we could trace his descendants, the elite's descendants of the dark hats. You could trace those descendants all the way to Nimrod. And so what they did is they just kept changing their names all throughout the centuries. But they were the driven force behind all the empires. So this whole concept into this one world government, NWO, is nothing new. And the only reason they were never able to be successful was because of the forces of light through the traditions of Abraham and the original Israelites, of course. And of course, they were teaming up with the Brotherhoods of Light of Tibet and the spiritual sanctuary, the spiritual organizations that came from the East, of course. There was a blend of ancient mysteries that was, preserved by these brotherhoods.
It's really interesting that you mentioned Israel as well, Ishmael, because the word American equals 64, the word Zion equals 64, and the word Israel also equals 64 in gematria. So again, there's a nice correlation with all those three things, Zion on the American continent and Israel. And obviously that was traditional Jerusalem, and you got the New Jerusalem on the American continent. So it dovetails. Even things like Tenet, so the Christopher Nolan film, who I think is a white hat director. I know you're going to talk about the history of the white hats, but his most recent film, Tenet, talks about time travel and inversion and reversing the flow of time, and kind of the two, the things that have been happening behind the scenes here, where there's one agenda that's been directly mopped up and cleaned up by the white hats. But the film Tenet, it's a palindrome, but it's also, when you spell it out, comes to the word 64, as does the word Jubilee, and also the word movie, and it is a movie, So the film, Tenet is a movie, but some really interesting early correlations already there. Yeah, excellent.
And another example of the concept of Zion was actually the Republic of Greece, which goes back to over 2,500 years ago.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was the last time we had a republic prior to the establishment of our Constitution. And so our Constitution was actually the millennium-long project of the original Order of the Knights of the Temple before they were suppressed by the Catholic Church, who in turn was controlled. Again, it goes back to Babylon, the same Babylonian bloodline.
Yeah. And how many years ago was that with Greece?
2,600 years ago. That's when we had the Republic of Greece.
Ah,
yeah.
26. Yeah, 26 is God. Interesting.
And it's interesting because whenever there are whenever there are free world structures, there is philosophy, there is knowledge. You know, that's when Plato and Socrates and Aristotle and Pythagoras were doing their thing. Of course, as soon as the Babylonian Brotherhood, under a different name during a different time, infiltrated Greece, eventually the Republic of Greece fell, because that's their way of conquering, is through infiltration. And these brotherhoods have been doing this over and over throughout the millenniums, you know, and then that's how eventually, you know, knowledge was lost again. And, you know, we haven't had a republic, unfortunately, for almost 2,600 years, you know, until, of course, the resurrection of the republic here in this continent through the founding fathers, actually, who are actually connected to the Whiteheads, of course, to the history, the lineage of the Whiteheads. Remember, I was telling you there's a bloodline association to both camps. Both the Darkheads and the Whiteheads are they're associated with a particular bloodline, and these two bloodlines throughout all of history, Tom, have been at war. You know, that was the old war of the kingdoms back to, you know, going back to 5,000 years ago. It was between these two groups.
Yeah. You talk about the White Hats and lineage, and you mentioned you said the mothership. So a friend of mine, you may not have heard, probably haven't heard of him, Ismael, but a guy called Jack Kidd. He's kind of part of the aristocracy here in the UK, but he was brave enough to stand up against everything during all these last few years. He's kind of a bit more behind the scenes, but we did just last week, we did a video to President Trump for his birthday, and Jack's in that. But his full name is Jack Edward Aiken Kidd 164. And that comes to the mothership. But also, I've had a lot of previous numbers on, I believe I was part of the Knights Templar, and I think Jack was as well. And he's definitely a white hat and stood up and done his job while he's, you know, been here. But also you're talking about bloodline. So the word bloodline equals 88, which is Trump, comes to the word Mormon, it comes to the word Scotland, purple. You got a lot of the kind of Freemasonry stuff, you know, the Scottish Freemasons in Scotland, and Scotland was a key position. But bloodline is 88. And royal, the word royal is 71, which comes to Lady Diana. It comes to Moses, comes to Smart, comes to my channel Psych, as in Psych.Club. But yeah, royal bloodline 159 comes to John F. Kennedy Jr. So it's, you know, they all of these key characters within, you know, within Q, within, you know, the White Hats are all there. Another thing, before we go on to the history of the White Hats, I discovered, so I was listening to one of your videos earlier today, and how they nicknamed you the Kryptonian. I referenced, because I was thinking this, I was like, this guy's like Clark Kent. He's suddenly descended upon the scene, and he's got all this wonderful knowledge and everything, and here to help us. And so we're grateful that you're here, buddy. But Kryptonian, I worked out the numbers on it, is 143. And 143 is a really important number. It comes to November 5th, which Doc Brown in Back to the Future says that's the date that he invented time travel. It was actually November 5th, 1955. 1955 comes to 194, which is September 11th, which is Nikola. Well, it's the Nikola Tesla Hotel, but actually the New Yorker Hotel in Manhattan, where I've stayed there. But November 5th comes to 143, Kryptonian 143, but it comes to Ground Zero. It comes to Building 7, and it comes to Melania Trump. And my friend Rachel from Right So Blonde, we'll have to get her on the next episode that we do together. But she called me today and said, Tom, I've got all these 143s. And I'm like, I've got some new 143s today. And one of them was Kryptonian. And I'm like, okay, I've got to mention that to Ismael today. But there's a phrase here in England, and it it might cross over to the US and other parts, but there's a thing in folklore here about always remember the 5th of November, because it was a plot years ago with the government, with Guy Fawkes, and we celebrated. We had bonfire night here. It's a few days after Halloween. And I've got a friend I've interviewed, and he has some close connections to Guy Fawkes. Danny Rampin, the DJ here. Danny won't mind me saying that, but he's got some close connections with that. But anyway, it was another important number, November 5th, time travel, all of that stuff, and Kryptonian 143. So I was like, there's an important thing between Superman and also Back to the Future. So I was like, yeah, I thought I'd mention that. But maybe we can, unless you've got other commentary on that, maybe we can delve into the history and I guess the future of the White House. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the future is looking very well, very good. Actually, according to not time glass, but spyglass technology.
Spyglass technology.
Yeah,
okay.
we were able to see a probable future that actually where the White Hats win and they checkmate the Dark Hats. And I believe that's the future that they secured in the positive timeline. So the battle's already been won, in other words. So the future is looking bright. But this old age conflict between good and evil, Tom, goes all the way back, even before recorded history. From my own research, I've actually traced it back to Atlantis. And even beyond that, I traced it all the way to the galaxy. The same rivaling bloodlines of those that come from the original Israeli Abrahamic tradition and those from Babylon have been warring throughout millions of years, all the way from the galaxy. Like that's where these bloodlines come from. This is a galactic war that we're in the middle of. It's not just planetary.
Yeah.
And so in modern times, we could trace the history to the White Hats, to the Knights Templars. The Knights Templars were the ones that reinstated it and reorganized after about 400 to 500 years of suppression due to the crucifixion of Jesus, who was a White Hat. He was part of a secret benevolent society known as the Essenes, the community of Qumran. And the community of Qumran were very, very secretive. They operated in isolation and seclusion from the rest of the Roman Empire ruled world, you could say. And so that's what the Knights Templars are. They are the reorganized descendants of the original Gnostics, or those that maintained the original followers of Jesus and Mary Magdalene and the community of the Essenes. And so there is a bloodline association. When you study the truth about what these Knights Templars were guarding and protecting, two things. The first thing that they were protecting was the lost knowledge of Solomon that they excavated in his ruined temple. And that knowledge, Solomon left all the records about the truth about the continents, the earth being a sphere, the solar system, the galaxy, the knowledge of the universe, and much more. I mean, Solomon, as you know, was a wizard. He was probably a demigod. He understood knowledge beyond. And that's why everybody came to him for answers, because he was known as Solomon the Wise. But the knowledge that the Templars inherited had the keys to the restoration and reestablishment of America, or of the free world, that was left by Solomon. So Solomon knew that one day, thousands of years later, a group of his descendants would once again, have access to that information. And so that was one of the biggest secrets that the Knights Templars have been guarding throughout, 1500 years, throughout the Dark Ages, right? Was the fact that they had the plan to restore and establish the Constitution that was laid down by Solomon, by the way. The second thing that the Knights Templars were protected, and this relates to Princess Diana and all the operatives of the White Hat community, is the bloodline. The bloodline that they consider the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail is very real, and it's the biggest threat to the organized religions. If you think about it, it is the biggest threat to all organized religions, because by virtue of that, the descendants of the Holy Blood are the ones that are supposed to be leading the world as far as spirituality is concerned, because there's a reason why they're part of that Holy Blood. That is the bloodline of the Seraphim. Those are the celestials incarnate in human form, the angels, whatever you want to call them, the benevolent ETs, the Pleiadians, the Lyrians, Syrians. They come through that bloodline that was actually deposited during the times of Atlantis, if you want to go way back beyond the Templars. But anyways, so the whole point is this: two things they were protecting: the blueprint that led to the establishment of our Constitution, and the Holy Blood. And that Holy Blood throughout all of medieval Europe, throughout all the Dark Ages, was carefully protected by the Templars, because if it wasn't for that, the founding fathers would have never existed, because even the founding fathers are traceable to the bloodline. So we could trace our founding fathers through, Jefferson, those that fought for the Republic. Of course, Alexander Hamilton was an infiltrator. He wanted a centralized form of government. He was actually, controlled by the Rothschilds. He was, and the Jesuits who were running him from behind the scenes. So that is what caused the schism between Jefferson and Hamilton, right? And then, of course, we could trace it to Lincoln. Lincoln was also had children, and I believe even General Patton, John F. Kennedy, in modern times, Princess Diana, Trump, they're all related by virtue of being, coming from this bloodline. So somewhere along the line, they're all like second cousins or half cousins. And so that's one of the things that the Templars protected, was that divine bloodline that was going to, be preserved all the way into the 21st century in order to fulfill the prophecies of exposing the Cabal, defeating the Cabal, and then exposing them. And then, of course, ushering in a better world for humanity. So that is what is called Project Zion. Zion meaning, the free world, the concept that goes against the one world government of the Illuminati. Now, that's just tracing it back to the Templars. The Templars were the originators of the White Hats. Okay,
you just said it's Project Zion.
Project Zion, yes. So that was the blueprint and hidden project, the millennial hidden project of the Knights Templars. Later, when they were suppressed by the Catholic Church, who was under the control of the Luciferian Babylonian Cabal back then, later they resurfaced again. They went to Portugal, Spain, and get this, Tom, they even posed as pirates. The original seafarers were those that were protecting the Holy Blood. The old kings of France in Spain. Of course, a lineage of that, a branch of that went to Scotland and England before they were replaced by the, Saxon, the Corbett Saxon. I think that's the real Windsor's last name, Corbett Saxons. They're Germans. Their bloodline, again, is Babylonian.
That's from Coburg, yeah.
Thank you. That's the original. Before they were replaced by them, of course, that was a move again, that was maneuvered by the Catholic Church, who was Babylon, has always been Babylon in modern times. And so they reorganized as the original Masons. They branched off into the Rosicrucians, which became a mystery school of ancient knowledge. And then, of course, they were the seafaring original pirates, and together they formed the Brotherhood of the Coast. And one of the main things that the Brotherhood of the Coast would do is every time the Catholic Church would send, ships to the different islands to get the gold and stuff, because they were always after the gold, the pirates would actually counteract that, and then they would steal the gold back from the papacy. And so at the same time, the pirates took all those treasures that they found in the old excavated ruined Temple of Solomon and put them in the different islands. And that's the reason why the X always marked the spot. I can't even say it, was because they were hiding their treasures that were left to them by Solomon, because Solomon, back then was able to accumulate a lot of the wealth during his times when he was, of course, king of Israel back in those days. So, from that point on, we had the founding fathers, right, that were continuing that plan thanks to the Brotherhood of the Coast, right? But then at the same time, the Luciferian Brotherhood, through Otto Weishaupt, who was a Jesuit priest, he creates the Bavarian Illuminati right around the same time that the White Hats, our founding fathers, established the Republic, 1776. And then so there was, again, an infiltration of the Bavarian Illuminati, trying to infiltrate the Masonic lodges, but a group of the Masonic lodges that kept faithful to the original Republic continued and branched off in secret. And they're the ones that held the tradition of Jefferson, Lincoln, Andrew Jackson, who fought against the central banking system of 1812, and then later Lincoln, and of course, leading into Kennedy and General Patton and Trump, and and again, they're connected also with not what's her name, Diana, who we know faked her death. So that is the modern day origin of the White Hats, and that's why the White Hats have to, in a way, have always played them but in secret. They've always had to kind of like also operate in secret so that they could, it's like a chess game. It's also a strategy when it comes to these two secret societies. And that's the reason why throughout all of history, you have had two, types of secret societies. But unfortunately, this world has ultimately been under the control of the Luciferian, Babylonian, Draconian secret society. whose time is up. In more recent times, another white hat that resurrected, who was also part of the bloodline, modern day, the revival of the white hats, where they began to gain more momentum and resources in the last 30 to 50 years, was Howard Hughes, the aerospace tycoon. He hired a bunch of beautiful women, and because this is what was happening. Other aerospace companies, like Northrop and all these other ones, were actually working in secret, and they were making all this money. They were getting all the contracts. So to him, that wasn't looking right. There was something wrong about that. So what he did is he hired all these beautiful women, and this probably gave rise to the concept of Charlie's Angels, because they were trained like CIA to pretend like they were going on dates with these, cabal members that were part of like either Bohemian Grove or Skulls and Bones or something, Trilateral Commission, Bilderbergers, those are the ones that were, that were associated with, the dark, sinister black op operations and stuff. So these girls were able to, access and get these guys drunk, make them think like they were falling in love. And then once they were drunk, they used their mind abilities to get information from them. So that was a very smart move by Howard Hughes. And then eventually all that data came back to Howard Hughes, and then that's when he found out the truth about these black operations, these black budget operations that have been going on since the 50s. They were developing through the military industrial complex. They were developing a secret space program, and all that money was being funneled to build the interplanetary infrastructure for the dark hats, of course, for the shadow government. But that's a modern day revival of the white hats, starting with Howard Hughes, and then that's how eventually the white hats gained momentum. So there was several points in the last 30 to 40 years where the white hats had the upper hand, and they had all the documentation to pretty much bring down the dark hats. And unfortunately, a lot of the incidents that took place, like the Oklahoma City bombing, and of course, 9/11, were as a result of the dark hats trying to suppress that information, because a lot of these documents were held in those two buildings that were destroyed. So that explains that,
Yeah.
But that's just a quick, brief explanation of the white hats going back to the Knights Templars, and then their revivals throughout. But this age of conflict between good and evil goes all the way back to Atlantean times. So we have two bloodlines, right? We have the Babylonian bloodline, which is associated with the dark hats, right? The Cabal. And then we have the bloodline of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, who are the descendants of King David, Solomon. And of course, we have also the mystery of the 10 tribes of Israel, who, by the way, were the original Europeans before the dawn of before the dawn of modern Europe. There were the Visigoths, there were the Ostrogoths, the Lombardis. These were the different isolated nation-state democracies that ransacked the Roman Empire to their knees. But of course, history calls them barbaric tribes. But there was nothing barbaric about these, 10 groups that ransacked the Roman Empire. They were actually working with Project Zion. They were part of the Melchizedek, Brotherhood of Light. Again, later they reorganized as the Knights Templars, but this is back then when they were still operating, in secrecy.
Wow. You mentioned Howard Hughes there. So when did Howard die? Like supposedly die? Did you say he's one that faked his death as well? Did I get that right? So when did he go? Like when did he pass?
Once they uncovered the scope of what was really happening in this world, and their agenda of bringing about this world government and AI and stuff like that, that's when the white hats started working with off-world benevolent forces like the Pleiadians and the Arcturians and Andromedans and stuff, and that's when they started receiving assistance. Like progression technologies, they were able to preserve them, right? And just keep them in hidden places, and they continue to protect them to this day, of course.
So do you remember what year it was that Howard Hughes, like, quote unquote, died? How long ago was that?
I don't have that data. I don't remember exactly. But
is he still? Because I don't know his. Let me check his age. So is he still? Oh, interesting. The time is 2:41 here, which is interesting. Which is I've got a good code on that. That 241st day of the year is August 29th when we started off. Let me just check. So he could still be alive even in this mortal realm, perhaps, if he's young enough. Let's have a look. Howard Hughes. See, Howard Hughes. I mentioned Christopher Nolan. Howard Hughes has got a great affinity with Howard Hughes. The White Hat director, Christopher Nolan, he loved Howard Hughes. He said, I actually got to ask him live in, oh, okay, that wasn't long ago, 1976. And he was, what age was he? He was 70. So maybe, yeah, okay. Interesting. I did the numbers on Howard Hughes as well. It comes to 137. It comes to President JFK, comes to Casino Royale, and it also comes to the word 17th. So if you spell 17th, it comes to 137. And I didn't know this until you were just talking about it, Ismael, but Project Zion, project is 87, which is truth, which is stellar, so divine assistance from the stars. And Zion, as we said, is 64, but add those together comes to 151, comes to Jesus Christ. So when you were saying that they're working with Project Zion is 151, Jesus Christ. Is also Lady Diana Spencer, 151. And Knights Templar. Knight is 69. You talked about checkmate. You've seen that the checkmate has been achieved. Add an S, takes you to 88. Again, Trump. And Templar is 85, which is awakening, which is storm, which is matrix. So Trump storm, Trump awakening comes from 173, Knights Templar. And then you talked about secret. So Knights Templar secret comes to 243. 243 comes to John F. Kennedy Eternal Flame, which is I've been to it. It's you may have been there as well, in Arlington. And when you view it from above, it's the Eternal Flame where JFK's supposedly was, his resting place, but it's a big, massive Q, big shape of a Q again, so great numbers. And also you said Brotherhood of the Coast or a Brotherhood of the Coast. A Brotherhood of the Coast comes to 241, again comes to President JFK. And the 241st day of the year is August 29th, which is in Terminator 2, and they say that's Judgment Day. Judgment Day is 129, which is ISMAEL PEREZ, and PEREZ is 70, which is many values, but one of them is secret. And ISMAEL is 59. I mentioned this to you before, but the top card, the trump card, the Joker card, Joker's 59. So it's like secret Joker. All of a sudden, we've got ISMAEL here with us to disseminate all this wonderful information. So lots of great numbers throughout all of it. Yeah. So I thought I'd mention those, but yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
So sorry I cut you off in your flow. You were talking about a brief history of the White Hats. What do we see in terms of this summer? Any more information on, because you talked closely about things could happen maybe tomorrow up until 2024. Any more recent things that have come kind of into your awareness in the last few days or week or so in regards to maybe things that we might expect during this summer period?
We could expect EBS and the new quantum financial system to kick in with a huge revelation to the world.
Yes.
About what's really been going on. So it's best to just be prepared. But it seems like even the stars are aligning in the favor of the White Hats. The tarot cards, everything, the entire spirit realm is aligning in the favor of the White Hats. Because in essence, the Babylonian Brotherhood, right? The order of darkness that has pretty much dominated the rings of power for thousands of years through their empires, through their secrecy and darkness and oppression and suppression. They knew that their time was coming to an end. They knew that they only had a certain amount of time to establish their throne of world domination, and they failed. And so now they're like just, honestly, now they're just hanging by a thread.
Yeah.
They're just hanging by a thread because they've been actually, in essence, checkmated. This whole tilt of power between the dark hats to the white hats began around 2016. And, it actually became more obvious that the white hats since 2016 have been just gaining more momentum.
Yeah.
and stuff. But the only reason that the dark hats were able to cheat, the last election, was because of the way people voted.
Yeah.
The machines were very capable of being manipulated, and of course we knew who was behind that. The guy who started the metaverse concept of digital virtual avatar realities. I don't want to mention it. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He's actually a synthetic. There's over 300 million synthetics that are walking among us that we think that they're human, but they're not. They're AI, and that's one of the.
Can you go a bit more into that, Ishmael? Because I'm beginning to just wonder that about certain people. So that when you say they're digital synthetics, so is it literally that? Are they kind of just like in a very realistic hologram, or is it they're just made of something different, but you could physically touch them, but there's no soul there, or is it a combination of both of those things or something else?
They're cybernetic in a sense where they're still physical, but there's no flesh and like living tissues inside them. They're not organic. They're what we would consider androids. It sounds too extreme, but since 2011, our planet unfortunately has been infiltrated by different alien AIs, that also are able to, they're physical just like we are, but they're able to camouflage themselves as humanoids, but they're really just machines. So we have that aspect of AIs that are walking among us, extraterrestrial AI races.
And there's 300,000 of them, you say?
Well, that's the overall number, considering the clones, because the clones also don't have any souls. Considering, the NPCs, those that are just generated by the Matrix. Those are people that are seem to be there, but they're really not there. They're just generated by the Matrix.
So they're just a hologram, a hologram.
Yeah, pretty much.
And they'll
get under your nose. And say that again.
What does what's NPC stand for? What's that?
Oh, in a video game now, that's what you call a non-player character. They're just kind of in the background.
Yeah.
So collectively with the NPCs, the clones, there's a lot of clones, soulless humans, right? And with the secret invasion of different alien AIs, there's approximately about 300 million synthetics that are walking among us, fooling us, making us think that they're human.
300 million. Okay.
300 million. Yes. Yeah. About a little over a quarter of a billion people, which is a lot. Yeah,
that's happened in the last, that's happened recently in the last few years. That amount of people.
Since 2011, the extraterrestrial AIs in the form of humanoid synthetics, androids, that's when they started walking among us. They've actually been the leading force behind the NATO, the UN, and the movement towards the one world government. They've been the ones pushing the elites. The elites actually, they're just puppets. They've been just taking these orders by the AIs. The AIs are gradually have been pushing them into this one world government. And that explains why, they're pushing the Internet of Things, they're pushing blockchain technology, crypto, Bitcoin, everything's going digital, because that's the only way where this AI could rule the world, is if everything goes digital. And everything becomes the AI. It's going to be in your walls, it's going to be in your stove, your microwave, your car. You're going to be talking to, you're going to wake up and talk to your shower, and Alexa, you put it on warm. So that's why things are heading into that direction. That's why big tech is on the race to develop super AI, which is AI that no longer needs us to reprogram it. It just it writes its own programs at that level. That's when it becomes dangerous. So right now we're using primitive AI. It's what they call narrow, Siri, Alexa, very limited. Okay. But at the same time, there's the next level up is called general. At general level, that's when the AI becomes conscious of itself. That's when it becomes sentient, but yet without emotion. It just becomes sentient, aware, self-aware. And that's what is happening with Google. Google is going to be the Internet of Things. It's already becoming aware. So and that's why when the Bible says, the beast is going to know everything, the beast is going to be everywhere at once, it's going to know all things. It is because it's going to know everything, because everybody is got either an iPhone or a laptop in front of them at all times, and it's going to be listening to everybody at the same time, because they're also connecting this Google Internet of Things to the quantum computer that Google perfected in 2018. So it's like a a synthesis of systems that are coming together that are building the infrastructure, or what we call the Skynet. Of course, they're building
Skynet.
Skynet. In this case, it's a Borg mind hive, and that has a lot to do with what they're giving people, right? Because it takes 3 to 4 years for that stuff to be activated by a signal, which is going to come from 5G, and that's going to be what's going to eventually connect people to the Borg. So yeah, things have to. The white hats have to bring down the cabal before that happens. That's all I can say.
Wow, so Skynet
so
becomes fully operational. Yeah, can see everything.
Yeah, the whole point is that in secret, our world's it has been invaded by AI. It's being invaded by AI. But that's why we also need a solar flash, because that's going to act as an EMP nuke to neutralize the entire signal and infrastructure. Non-existing. Right. Yeah. So in a way, it's like, the prophecies talk about the rise of a beast, but right in the nick of time, there's something that destroys the beast, and the beast does not get a chance to rule. That's very symbolic to the rise of AI, And when you think of the original patent number that developed the cryptocurrency is 6606. So there's no coincidence that John the Revelator, when he wrote that book of the Apocalypse, it's almost like he was using some sort of a looking glass technology of his times, where he was able to see these probabilities, but he couldn't describe it back then. So he said, it's not going to be a demon. It's not going to be a human. It's not going to be a fallen angel. How do you describe a thinking machine 2,000 years ago? It's impossible. But he said it's going to be something that's going to be, that's going to be as a beast. And when you think of the terminology of a beast, is something that destroys and devours. So in essence, the last level of AI, which I think that has already been achieved in secret, is super AI. And at that point, the AI writes its own software, and it expands at an exponential rate to the point where it only takes the AI 7 days to achieve what we would achieve in intelligence in 6,000 years, but every 7 days. And it just keeps growing every 7 days to the point where after a few years, it's got an IQ of 1 million.
Wow.
That's when it becomes dangerous.
So
that's the biggest threat we have right now. But at the same time, as the beast emerges, right? Because that's what everything that the elites have been pushing is gearing towards this, right? This transhumanist, this, connect everyone to the Borg mind, right? As this comes to, as this comes pushed forward more so, that's when I believe that the solar flash has to happen, because that's the only thing that's going to neutralize the whole beast and destroy it. And then, of course, that's going to trigger our dormant DNA to activate. The veil is going to be lifted, and those that are not wicked are going to be entering a better earth, a heaven on earth type of reality.
Wow. That's so
there's a lot of metaphors in the Bible about, the time we're living in.
Yeah. It's like when you're saying as well about John the Revelator, I wonder if he had something like a Urim and Thummim that he was able to see. And there's other scriptures talk about in the millennial reign, the earth will be like a sea of glass, where you can kind of see all kind of past, present, and future, and all kind of timelines converge. And how would you describe that back then? It's like, you got to come up with some vernacular for it. This is super interesting. You said super AI. So super is 79. Comes to Lemuria, comes to atomic gold, the number for atomic gold, comes to mother, comes to nature. But AI, just A plus I, comes to 10. So 79 plus AI plus 10. Super AI comes to 89. That comes to virus. So what you've described there was like another kind of super virus, just like going out of control and growing.
That's what it's been in the cosmos. A virus that's been destroying many universes and galaxies. Going back to the original AI that was developed 900 billion years ago, according to my research.
Wow. And the thing that when you were describing about these synthetic AI people, is making me obviously think of Terminator. And you've got the good and the bad version of it. So you've got the Schwarzenegger comes along. And I'm not commenting on his status as a person or as an actor, but some interesting numbers with that as well. So Terminator is 133, Schwarzenegger is 133, so it's almost like he was chosen to do the job at some level. And the Terminator is 166, which is the White House, which is kind of interesting. So just a bit more on this. I find this really fascinating. So of these 300 souls, you've got clones, etc. But the one that is a synthetic being, and they can kind of have a physical. They can look humanoid.
Yeah, they shape. They use they have like nanobots that allow them to shapeshift their physical form into humanoids, and they
really.
When they do it, I mean, you could be right next to one at a restaurant or waiting in line to get to, somewhere, and you wouldn't even know that is an android, an alien android from another world.
Wow.
Yeah, they infiltrated our universe about approximately 2 billion years ago, before they drop off the reptilians here in the Orion constellation. Exactly 1 billion years ago, that's when the reptilians were dropped off by this AI, because this AI didn't have access to our galaxy. And it settled on a galaxy by the name of M39 Messier Galaxy, also known as the Sombrero Galaxy. And from that galaxy, the Sombrero Galaxy, or M39, whatever it was, it's been infiltrating a lot of galaxies, including the Andromedan Galaxy. But of course, they were able to hold them off, and then of course the Milky Way was infiltrated by them. Eventually, They reached us. Yeah.
So that's fascinating. So they can, and so really, even if you were to get, if they didn't change form, if you could hold them, hug them, if there's a female, you could kiss them, you could do it, and you wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know. So be careful, people out there, with who you date. One of the two questions that you should be asking.
All kinds of things from the past now.
There's two questions that I suggest you ask before you go on a date. Have you been vaccinated? And if they say yes, it's a red flag. Next, because of course you don't want to become inorganic, because they could transfer that to you. Those are no longer humans; they're becoming GMOs, genetically modified humans. Secondly, make sure you feel a connection in your heart, because these synthetic androids, alien androids that infiltrate our world, have no aura. They have no vibration. So if you don't feel anything coming out of them, if you just feel the sense of coldness, it's because they're not human. So I just wanted to give you guys that heads up if you guys go on dates, because not everyone's human.
Oh, you're beginning to answer a lot of things. Oh wow. Okay. Wow. I'm gobsmacked at that. That's brilliant. Maybe it's not brilliant, but that's incredible. In terms of, so you hear about reptilians and how they can shapeshift as well. What percentage of because I think there's some good reptilians as well. I might be not, but I believe there are. But what kind of percentage of the population are reptilians, and whether they're good or indifferent or bad ones?
Well, in Orion, they had a population of 7 billion. Oh my God.
In Orion?
Yeah, Orion, they just grew in numbers. Throughout the galaxy, they probably expand to about 38 billion eventually.
Wow.
Through their genetic hybridization programs, working with the Zetas, the insectoids. I mean, these people were really just going to worlds and genetically modifying species in order to control them. And in some cases, they implanted a type of technology where they would even just, through remote control, through advanced mental technological means, they would absolutely control their minds.
Wow.
Yeah, so they really created a lot of mutant races out there, unfortunately.
And here on the Earth right now, any thoughts or understanding of how many reptiles we have?
Yeah, about 99% of the reptilians have been escorted out of our solar system, or arrested by the galactic tribunals.
Oh, yeah, so there's not many left.
Yeah, what's going on here when these tribunals take place, right at the fall, when the White Hats expose the Cabal and hang them? Well, I mean, not literally, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's also taking place in our galaxy. As I speak right now, the Galactic Federation is holding trials where many Draconians are going to be facing some sort of punishment because they lost the war in the galaxy, thanks to our super soldiers, by the way.
Can you go into more about the super soldiers? Because I'm fascinated by that, and I'm wondering. I don't know. There's been so many thoughts I've had in the last week since I've discovered you. I'm like, okay, yeah. Can you go more into that? I mean, are all starseeds super soldiers? Talking of soldiers, so King Solomon equals 144. Digital soldier also equals 144, and it makes me think of the 144,000. I'm not an expert on that, but the number is 144, and it makes me think, okay, Maybe there's something to do with that. Maybe that's star seeds. Maybe it's a group within star seeds. I don't know. But King Solomon 144 and Digital Soldier 144. So
interesting, very fascinating. It's amazing how numbers and geometry and everything is interconnected. It's like they're universal ways of deciphering things in the universe.
Yes.
It applies to every civilization. Mathematics is a language that is recognizable across the multiverse, which is amazing.
Yeah, for sure, definitely, and it's beginning to make a lot more. Well, it's opened my thought process to a lot more things. So it's fascinating. Super Soldier.
So
Sorry,
the super soldiers, many will really find hard to digest because it might sound a little bit too sci-fi, but I guess, how can I explain this? Due to the fact that within the private sector, we did inherit interplanetary and stellar technology. Both the good guys, both the dark hats and the white hats were eventually, involved in the war in space. And so what they did on both camps, the dark side mainly working through AI, biogenetic, and nanotechnology, they were able to enhance their soldiers, I guess those that are working for the Dark Fleet, through cybernetics and artificial intelligence. So they were able to become a human 3.0 as a cyborg, right? Which is something they're trying to do here for the rest of humanity. But the Germans have already, they've already initiated that plan since the 1940s. But the good guys were actually genetically enhanced without the nanotech and without the artificial intelligence, just by boosting up more genetic material. So in a way, they were genetically modified to use about 10 to 15 to 20% of their full genetic material, and therefore their full, mind power. And those became the super soldiers that were drafted to pretty much protect our solar system from the negative, regressives. And so at the same time, there's, I guess, another group of super soldiers that were actually ranked up to use anywhere from 60 to 65 to 70%, and those were a fewer. Those were considered super powerful, and those were the super soldiers that were used to fight in the war against AI, consisting of multiple universes. So they were used in the multiverse. So the super soldiers programs have existed since the 1950s, and unfortunately, because after you go and you fight in these space wars, for whatever time you serve. Sometimes it's 20 years. They call it the 20-year and back. Sometimes it's 60 years, depending on the program you're in. They actually erase your memories, and then they age regress you, and then they use time travel to bring you back in time minutes right before they took you. So that way, it's like you have no recollection that you were off for 20 or 60 years, fighting in a war in space. You have no recollection. So wow. That's one of the things that went wrong within the super soldier program. And of course, there's many reasons why they do that. First of all, they don't want people to know the truth yet. And this has a lot to do with how a group of people within the secret space program, they want to hold the disclosure for another 100 years. They don't want people to have this interplanetary stellar technology like medbeds and stuff and replicators. Right. But again, there's another group within the secret space program that are actually pushing the super soldiers to come out as whistleblowers, at least those that are gaining their memories back.
Right.
In order to speed up the disclosure process and bring it about sooner than later.
Yeah.
So that's what's been going on. A lot of the super soldiers are actually regaining their memories, including myself. There was thousands and thousands and thousands of super soldiers, and a lot of them were actually star seeds or Rh negative blood type that were genetically enhanced. And there was a reason why they picked those that were of the Rh negative blood type, because they don't have the primitive gene. They have a pure undulated strain that can be traceable back to the Anunnaki or the Nibirians. It's a celestial gene. It's an alien gene that allows them to access superpowers.
So if someone is of the positive blood type, but they can still be a starseed, is that correct?
Say that again. What was your question?
If someone is of the positive blood type, so they're not a negative blood type, if they're positive, can they still be a starseed?
Yes, of course. Starseeds are both Rh positive and Rh negative. The only difference between the starseeds that are Rh negative is that they just come from royal blood. That's it.
Okay. And also, so the starseeds that are Rh positive could still ascend and have even up to 48 the 48 strands activation of DNA?
If that was written in their contract, or if that's part of their blueprint, yes, depending on how evolved and how expanded their spirit is, because the oldest souls of the universe are going to be the ones that go beyond the 12 strand DNA capacity. They're going to go into 24, 36, and 48. The older your soul is, the more genetic potential you're going to be upgraded to use. So that's why there's going to be different levels of upgrades, when the ascension takes place, because not everyone's going to be living in the fifth dimension. The majority of humanity is going to the fourth dimension. And then, of course, the star seeds with the Terran humans who decided to evolve are going to go into, which is going to be a small number of them, are going into the fifth dimension, and then even a smaller number of star seeds, those that have the oldest of souls, are going to go into the sixth dimensional Earth. So there's going to be different dimensional Earths coexisting at the same time. And
the a general definition of old souls are ones that have ascended to the high levels prior, and then they volunteered to come here. Is that kind of a correct assumption?
Yes, they've already reached completion, which is all the way to the 12th dimension. Yes.
Okay. And that can be souls that are Rh negative and also Rh positive, or not generally for Rh positive?
Correct. Yeah. The only difference is the Rh negative souls are those that come from the lineage of the Nibirians, who were the galactic royal stock. There's two bloodlines in our galaxy, just like how there's two rivaling bloodlines here in our planet, right? They have Babylonian, Luciferian bloodline of the reptilian hybrids, human reptilian hybrids that have been running our world for thousands of years, and then the Michael lineage that was carried through Abraham, King David, Solomon, and Jesus, Mary Magdalene, Knights Templars, and of course now we know the White Hats today. They're all members.
Yeah.
But that bloodline that could be traceable back to the galaxy, back to the lineage of Michael, which actually was established in Lyra. And you could actually trace all human-like beings back to Lyra in our galaxy. That's where our ancestors originated, if you want to, go back to 560 million years ago, which I reveal in my book, by the way, in the Galactic History chapter.
Wow, I need to order your book. And in terms of, I had a question. What was it now? I think what it is. Can't remember, but it will pop back in as we're talking. So Ascension. So are there things that we can do as digital soldiers, as starseeds, as truthers, to enhance before the solar flash, to enhance our genetic capacity? Is there a way to advance through the strands, or is it the majority of it? Will it be when the solar flash hits?
Are you talking about the starseeds or all of humanity?
The starseeds, yeah.
Oh, the starseeds, because they are older souls, they're all going into the fifth dimension and up. Some are going into higher dimensions, not just the fifth.
And is there a way to? So if someone is a starseed now, and because I've listened to some of your videos, and you were saying, well, if people are good people and that they'll go into the fourth dimension, but then the starseeds are the ones that are, speaking up, trying to do something positive, sharing gifts, whether it's tarot or numbers or great research and understanding and downloads. So if they're doing something active to fight the war and to spread more light, is there something that they can do to? So I'm assuming people that are doing that are by and large starseeds. Would that be a kind of correct general assumption?
Yes, all light warriors, light workers, energy healers, Reiki masters, quantum healing, facilitators. They're all starseeds, and that's the reason why they're in that field. Anything that has to do with helping others, helping the collective through means of natural ways of doing things, whether it's through energy healing or anything, is because they are part of the starseed nation. Yes, and they're also the return high priest and high priestess of Atlantis and Lemuria, and they originated in Lyra. That's all roads. When it comes to the White Hats, technically, like I said, it could be traceable off-world. The lineage of King David and Solomon, of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, of Princess Diana, Trump, JFK Jr., could be traceable all the way back to Lyra.
Right.
And, that's where Michael deposited his seed, Michael the archangel, right? And then you had Lucifer, who deposited his seed, right, in Orion, in Alpha Draconis, and that's the origin of the Draco. So the Draco, throughout galactic history, as I reveal in my book, are the children of Lucifer.
Right. Yeah. Right. And the star seeds, the light workers, right now, as we talk today, what sort of percentage are they likely to have in terms of their DNA? I heard you say in one of your, maybe a couple of your previous videos, talking about a 4% marker. Are the light workers at 4%, or are they maybe at 5 or 6% activation? Or
I think there's about, some of the starseeds have already assembled 4 to 5 strands of DNA, and as a result, their psychic abilities are enhancing. They're becoming more in tune with the changes, more in tune with the elements, with others. They're reading people's thoughts. They're manifesting things faster. It's almost like they're already living in a 5th dimensional reality, because that's the difference between a 5th dimensional reality and a 3rd dimensional reality, is that in the 5th dimensional reality, you're using your super consciousness. You're manifesting things left and right. You're co-creating, and you are involved in the process consciously, because you are more aware of yourself as co-creator with creator source.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess that's when you become enlightened, they say, right? You reach those levels of mentality. Yeah.
When you so you have skills, abilities like remote viewing and other things that you can do, Ismael. So when you look at someone, can you see kind of at what level of what level they're on in terms of their ascension process?
Oh, I don't see. I feel things. I feel the vibration. Everybody's everybody's vibrating. Like, okay, the average Earth Terra non-starseed vibrates anywhere from 120 to 150 hertz. A starseed, or a higher dimension, or higher evolved soul in human form, vibrates anywhere from 200 to 300 hertz per second. Through the process of raising their vibration through meditation and going within and doing inner work, they actually increase that vibration, and they could go all the way up to 1,000. And once they hit 600 to 800, then they're in the 4th dimension. Once you hit 1,000, 1,200 hertz per second, then your consciousness is vibrating at a 5th dimensional level of reality. You are no longer affected by the 3rd dimension.
Wow.
And that's one of the things that I teach in my Starseed Cosmology course. At the end, as a bonus, I teach the techniques. Not only do I provide people with the knowledge, the higher knowledge, but I also give them the tools and techniques to be able to access, their own skills and their own innate divine given, powers.
Wow. I know that your courses are pretty popular right now and they're filling up. There's only part of that bonus section that you can maybe share with the listeners today that they can work on to raise their vibration, to raise their frequency.
Yeah, one of the biggest things to do so is to be aware of the now, to be in the here and the now, to have your focus, attention, and awareness in the presence at every given second of the day, because that's the secret of manifestation. It's wherever your mind goes, that's where the energy momentum builds. So you're literally co-creating every second of the day. I mean, people have over 88,000 thoughts per day, or a little under 9,000 thoughts per day. And I can guarantee you that about more than 90% of those thoughts are negative. and by virtue of that, they're co-creating a negative reality for themselves unknowingly, So the best way to become a co-creator and in whatever reality you want to create is by being in the presence. If you challenge yourself and just practice mindfulness all throughout the day, I guarantee you, your life is going to change for the better.
Wow. Solar flash comes to 111 perfection. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
It's going to transmute all negativity on the planet and refine all that is good and upgrade it into a better reality. It's almost like the Persian. It's going to act, the solar flash is going to act as a Persian.
Yeah. With your visions, have you ever had any specific visions of New York, of the area of New York, particularly around World Trade Center and Statue of Liberty? Has that geographic location ever come up in any of your visions?
Well, there's those timelines where I guess New York went underwater and California have been averted by the Earth Alliance and the Whiteheads through time travel. So you could say we've been involved in a war of time travel. It's like a chess game. And so luckily the Whiteheads had the upper hand, and so they averted the catastrophes of having New York underwater or half of California go in the ocean. So that's not going to happen anymore.
Okay, so those things were on a certain timeline.
On a different timeline, yeah, they were on a certain timeline where events were going to lead to that point, but luckily the Whiteheads were able to secure that. Yeah.
Okay.
With the help, of course, of the Federation and the benevolent races. Because you have to understand, Tom, this is the most important planet in the multiverse, and that's why we're receiving massive help by not only positive, benevolent extraterrestrial races, but also beings beyond them that are operating beyond the 13th, 14th level of reality, whatever you want, but beyond our galaxy, beyond our local universe. All eyes are on us right now. And all help is on us too,
That's good. That's good to know. You talked about, so the 15th level of dimension is currently the kind of highest, but you talked about the building another 3 currently.
Yes. As I speak, there's going to be 3 more levels that are being, I guess they're already developing as a result of the expansion of the motherverse, the multiverse. It already reached 1 eternal round, which coincides to the outbreath or its expansion into the many. And as it now bounces back up, or what we call the Ascension, where the many are once again, becoming the one, it's going to start a whole new cycle of expansion. And as a result of that, 3 more dimensions were added because it was able to learn so much through that expansion, you could say. And so 3 more dimensions were added beyond the 15th.
And who are those beings that are creating that? Are we
all of us,
our higher selves?
Every single one of us is contributing to that. Yeah. So we're all collectively the sensors of the collective spirit that animates the cosmos,
Yeah.
All like little fragments of that. And through each and every single one of us, the greater consciousness, the cosmic mind expands further and further, or evolves into greater complexities and greater versions of itself because of us. So we're not, see, spiritual evolution, or I guess consciousness progression is not just something that we undergo. It's something that the entire cosmos undergoes, but we're all doing it together. When we grow, the cosmos grows, because we're all interconnected. There is no separation.
Do you think that it's almost like, because this seems to be the most kind of important fulcrum of eternity really so far. That's what it feels. I mean, unless there's something else, but it feels like that. And so maybe it was like, okay, we're going to also make an extra 3 dimensions, an extra realm to go into. It's like, okay, we've had this kind of epoch of amazingness, and then it's like, okay, there's another set of levels within the game.
Well, there's always the dimensions are never going to stop growing because we're dealing with infinity.
Okay.
Infinity, yeah. As I speak, every day, new and new universes are coming into being. So that's why I totally disagree with the Darwinian version of creation, that from a single point of singularity, everything was expanded. All the debris became, through accident. They say that by accident everything just formed, right? Galaxies became galaxies. Stars became stars, planets became planets. But that doesn't, there's all the evidence is saying it's contrary to that. All the evidence is pointing out that there was some sort of universal architect, some sort of intelligent planner, that set everything into motion, as to why everything was organized according, to this blueprint. Because just how we have a blueprint that allows our DNA to grow into limbs, to grow into legs, and for us to grow, right, into the people that we are, right, from the point that we're a fetus to now. It also operates on a cosmic level. The cosmos is also operating from what I call in my book a cosmic DNA blueprint. So it works on every level of reality. So yes, everything is driven by intelligence. So and we could even see that in terms of like how everything in reality is scripted when you really think about it.
Yes.
We're living in a, how can I say, in a huge show. This, it's like a huge, where everything is in a way orchestrated from behind the scenes. Nothing happens by happenstance. There's always some sort of intelligent planning before things occur.
Yeah. Spiritual creation, and then into the physical creation. Even if it's physical, but something behind the scenes, some inception, and then it manifests. Talking of your book, you're writing another book. What can you go into some of the things that are going to be in your future book?
Yeah, my future book is going to explain the entire cosmic ongoing war against AI that's been going on for billions of years. That goes back to the beginning of time, I guess, if you want to call it that. But I always believe that we're dealing with infinity. That in essence there is no beginning or end. There is eternity. There is infinity, and from infinity, time and matter and space all came about at the same time. It was emanated from infinity, but everything eventually goes back to infinity. So in my second book, is going to be a continuation of my first book. In my first book, I pretty much just break out the cosmic history of the Earth, the galactic history, how it ties into the suppressed real history of the Earth, going back to the first great civilization beyond Atlantis. Atlantis was actually the fourth seeding. We're part of the fifth seeding right now, and also describing the organization of cosmos, and then Earth's relationship to the organization of cosmos, and much more. It's also an integration of modern day through quantum physics, modern day discoveries that actually tie into the ancient metaphysical studies of the esoteric tradition as well, coming back into one book in an effort to explain almost everything, where we come from, why are we here, and where we're heading. And then, so my second book is going to be a continuation of that. It's going to explain much more. So in order to understand this next book that I'm in the process of writing, you first have to read, our cosmic origin is now, on Amazon.
Yeah. And your first book as well. So your first book.
Well, that was called Secret Government. Yeah.
Yeah. And is there a PDF version of that available anywhere?
No, unfortunately, I lost that book. They wouldn't even let me redo a second edition or reprint it.
Wow.
Because I revealed a little bit too much information. I guess this was around the time when Dan Brown had published the Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons, and then here I come and I published The Secret Government, the truth of the battle between good and evil, between the two brotherhoods, right? The Luciferian Babylonians, and then the Brotherhood of Light, which is associated with, the ancient Abraham and the Brotherhood of Melchizedek and stuff. And so I guess, not to mention, a lot of the modern day agendas that I actually predicted before it played out, 15 years later. Like everything that is happening now, I talked about in that book. So they wouldn't let me republish it.
Wow. Okay. But you still have a physical copy, like you yourself can still read that. You have a book, a copy of that, a manuscript of it somewhere. It's not lost.
Yeah, I'm keeping that book.
I was going to say, it's not, when you said they took it from you, when you said they took it from you, I was like, oh no. It's like modern book burning. I was like, no, they couldn't. Surely they didn't take it from him. Like, okay, yeah, I understand. Wow. So what are some things, if we want to, I could be incorrect on this, but I feel that somehow you've been around. I don't mean this disrespectfully, but all of a sudden, a lot of us have suddenly become aware of you in our kind of movement, which is great. And I remember talking to Rachel just literally last week. We kind of felt like we were hitting a bit of a brick, a bit of a stop, and we're like, come on, we need something else. And then all of a sudden, like literally, I think 24 hours later, maybe less than that, I watched your show with Janine, and I saw the one with Nicholas, and I was like, okay, wow, this seems like some really good extra info that we can help. Because I think when you share information and share truth, the effect it has is it raises the ships, it raises everyone that is able to receive it. And that's what I feel, I'm like, that's what I feel with it. And I feel, you're in terms of what your assignment is. And I just feel it's very timely, and I'm glad that you've landed, even though you had landed before, but the Superman metaphor is like you landed, and it's like, and I'm just excited to learn more, because it did it, we needed something more. We needed some more light. We needed some more information, some more downloads, And maybe from what you were saying, you know, that there's many super soldiers. Maybe we'll have others as well that kind of descend and teach and expand. And but it's very, I think it's very necessary. That's what I'm trying to express. I'm probably not picking my words that well, but hopefully you can feel what I'm trying to say, you know. So
I feel you. I feel you. Thank you. I appreciate the compliment.
Yeah.
You know, I knew that the time would come when I would be needed to help share further information regarding next disclosure. And you know, I knew that there was a time to publish my book. It's not like people were ready for it even 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 3 years ago. I had to wait until the collective consciousness of humanity was ready for this next level disclosure. And so I guess everything you said happened, you know, according to divine timing in a way. But I did isolate myself for 25 years to just dedicate myself to investigating as much as I could.
Yeah.
Because I knew that the rabbit hole was just much deeper than what everybody else was talking about. It almost seems like everybody just had fragments to me, like just pieces of the puzzle. And so I guess my endeavor was to put the puzzle pieces together and explain the bigger picture. And I guess that's why I ended up writing Our Cosmic Origin.
Yeah. It's interesting as well, because you described, when you said you were away for 25 years kind of preparing, and you described yourself as a hermit, and you probably know from Janine, one of the cards she has is the hermit card in tarot. So it's like, okay, here comes the hermit. She's like, I think she's even said about there's someone, the hermit. I'm sure we did a reading with her like a few weeks ago, and she was describing someone, and it was the hermit, and it's like, you know, well, here you go. So it's amazing how things happen, and you don't know necessarily fully what's coming, but it's always a nice surprise when you see it, you know. And talking of the rabbit hole, so I had a whole bunch of numbers here, but there's one. Where is it? I think I've sent this one here to myself. Let's have a look. I may not have done, but you know in the Matrix film when Neo is typing away, when he's on the computer at the beginning and it comes up and it says follow the white rabbit, and Neo is the one, because 34 comes to Neo, and it's just an anagram of the word one, you know, number one. And I've met Keanu Reeves actually briefly before, about a year before, you know, in 2019, so before everything changed. And he's shorter than you would think, actually, as well. I was surprised, but anyway, it was nice to just briefly shake his hand. So follow the white rabbit comes to 233, which comes to gold-backed digital currency. So in terms of like Nasara, Jasara, it also comes to the 10 days of darkness, and maybe that's involved in, you know, in the emergency broadcast and kind of revealing, you know, where people as a collective, as the world, and I believe that's necessary, because everyone needs to kind of know there was a point in time where everyone heard the basic tenets of the truth, you know. And also 233 comes to follow the white rabbit. So it made me think of when you were saying, you know, how deep is the rabbit hole, you know, how far does it go? And there was another one I did just recently, and I'm trying to find where it is, but I might not be able to find it. 233. Let me see, where is it? I'll have to send it to you, but it tied in with yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So also John Fitzgerald Kennedy, 233. So follow the white rabbit, 233. And Looking Glass technology, and that's so the difference. So what's the difference between Looking Glass and Spyglass? Are they the same thing, or are they slightly different?
I just misused the word. I was intending to say Looking Glass technology, not Spyglass.
Oh, okay.
But the way, you know, they're spying into the future or into the past, so I guess it is applicable.
Yeah, it is a spyglass, isn't it? It's like they're looking. Yeah. No, I just thought maybe there was just a different kind of slight difference on the technology. And in terms of so you said that you feel that everything would be by 2024, and I guess that could be anywhere during that year period of 2024. So it could even be kind of technically on the last day of 2024, or do you think it would be, well, it could be now. So it's kind of a 2.5 year period, perhaps. Is that right?
I think the ball's going to start. It's starting to roll now. We are heading into the storm, which is a huge disclosure to the world, big revolution, which is going to lead to, a lot of reformations, a lot of changes, positive changes, that eventually will, realign Earth back to the galactic community in preparation for like first contact and stuff like that. Because that's part of the positive ascending timeline, is that we are going to make contact with our brethren from the many worlds, our star brothers and sisters. And we're going to learn to live in a galactic community in the millennium, right? That's what the millennium is about. It's not just about a golden age, but an age where we are positively interacting with many extraterrestrials from many worlds.
It's so interesting you say that, actually, Ismael, about the millennium and contacting aliens, our brothers and sisters, because another word as well, so royal. So if you do the word king, it equals 41 in the simple geometry of the numbers, but also the word alien comes to 41, and also USA comes to 41, and we spoke about the importance of that. But in terms of so you said about the millennium and the aliens. So we've just gone through this period of coronavirus, and so I knew, it wasn't what they were telling us, but I had to try and figure things out. And I've always been open to things, but I must say that I felt kind of literally activated right at the beginning of 2020, March. I had to figure stuff out. The numbers started descending upon me. No one told me how to do it. They just kind of came. I did have a brief example of it when I met Ivanka Trump in 2015, and going across that piece of water between the World Trade Center and Statue of Liberty. But I didn't understand the numerical significance of the letters and the numbers, but I felt there was something there. Correct, if you do the numbers if you do millennium, well, President Trump always says America first. So that's one of his key slogan phrases, America first. And America first comes to 122.
I'm sorry, I have to actually, I only have 2 more minutes left.
Oh, okay, we'll wrap up. Okay. But America first comes to 122, which comes to millennium. And then coronavirus comes to 155, which comes to the millennium. And then if you do the coronavirus, it comes to 188, which comes to close encounters. So you've got all those things, coronavirus hits the world. It seems like it's the biggest and worst thing ever, but actually there's a good side of it. And even 188 comes to Jesus of Nazareth. So you've got all these, first contact, religious timelines and everything, all good things kind of coming to this convergence. So anything you want to close off with us, Ismael? Would love to do this again in the future. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm sure I have a lot of other questions, but my mind is thinking of all kinds of things as we're talking. So please, any concluding thoughts?
Just that we've won the war. The house cleansing began in the higher dimensions, and it's just a matter of time before it trickles down here. It's already there. So we have nothing to worry about. Don't buy into the fear porn anymore. We have secured the positive ascending timeline. And, for those that are interested in reading my book, it's available on Amazon. It's called Our Cosmic Origin. I'll actually just give you the link if you want to put it.
We'll put the link down in the description. So go and order your book. I need to get mine as well. So,
and I just added my September class, but it's already filling up. So I'm just gonna, just throw it out there in case there's still some room left. I would go into the link if it's okay with you. Can I give it as well? And in this class again, I teach you an in-depth. It's called Starseed Cosmology course, where we go into this deep understanding of our galactic roots, the history of the galaxy, where we come from. And then, of course, I teach techniques as to how to activate those memories. But anyway, I appreciate your time, Tom. Thank you so much. And we'll see you again.
Brother. Thank you. Let's do it again.
Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone. Click the links below. Godspeed. Thanks, brother. Thanks, Ismael. Take care. Bye.